discretion. We're ready. We're ready when you are. We may want to move that mic over to. A trouble detector, as you can tell, and forgot to cut it off before the aide picked it up.
Is Representative Bruce here? I wanted you to come on up. That was something that one of the things I learned when I was a member of the House for 4 years, that whenever you come before a House committee and you move to the Senate, it's always good to have a friend from the House. So I hope that Representative Bruce will sit beside me. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to come before you today and present SB 552 and 553. As many of you know, as a result of the municipalization process that has occurred throughout Fulton County, but certainly in the northern parts of the county with the creation of Sandy Springs, Johns Creek, and Newtown, Milton, it's created a substantial pressure on unincorporated areas. And the people that I represent recently had to suffer through a 3-mill tax increase because the special service district in my part of Fulton County, which is South Fulton, the services for police, fire, and other important services such as parks were funded out of the special services district. And when Sandy Springs became a city, as a part of that process, the funds that went into the special service district were reduced substantially. So in order to make sure that the residents of South Fulton, which the unincorporated area of South Fulton has more than 57,000 people in it, in order to make sure that they could maintain the quality of service that they had before, or even the basic elements of quality service, Mr. Chairman, meaning having access to appropriate police and fire, they recently had a tax increase of 3 mills from 4.5 mills to 7 mills. As a result of that process, myself and Representative Bruce, Representative Virgil Flood, Representative Holmes, and Representative Sharon Beasley Teague, understanding that the train was moving legislatively, began going all over South Fulton about 3 months ago. So to date, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we have had more than 20 public meetings where I have attended them along with the Fulton County Commissioner Bill Edwards, Representative Bruce, and the other members from South Fulton. And what we heard were really 4 important things. Number one, because it appeared that we were going to be paying more for services, there was a real concern within our community about having the right to have more local control if, in fact, we were going to be forced to pay more for services. Number two, they wanted the right to vote to form not only one city but 2 cities. I'll address that later in my comment. But I want to emphasize that they merely wanted the right, the choice, to select a city and have a smaller and more local form of government, since in fact we are actually having to pay more. Number 3, they had a clear message that they wanted time. They wanted to go slow. I think one of the important lessons learned from Sandy Springs are that the leaders of Sandy Springs had a substantial amount of time to prepare to move into cityhood. And because candidly people in unincorporated South Fulton were not planning on cityhood, we have put more time in the bill so that legislators like myself and my colleagues in the House and the members of the Fulton County Commission can educate the voters. So we put time in the bill. So the bill, as it's written right now for both cities, contemplates a 2006 November referendum. The fourth and final point beyond wanting time is that what we learned throughout the hearings that I conducted all over my district was that, there's a difference between the southernmost part of the district and the mid part. I mean, I'm blessed in that South Fulton County has 177,000 acres in it. And in the southern portion of the county, on your maps, to your right, my left, you see a brown area. That area represents Chattahoochee Hill Country, which is the second city that we introduced. It's SB 553. In the Chattahoochee Hill Country, it really is a model, in my judgment, for green space preservation, and I'm certainly biased. But that area represents 40,000 acres of green space, and it has between 3,000 and 4,000 residents there. But it has hundreds of farms, and it's just as beautiful an area as you can see. So what we decided after meeting with people in that area of the county and meeting with people in South Fulton was that we would form two cities. And I really believe that in the future, the Chattahoochee Hill Country area and the South Fulton area are really going to be a jewel and a major contributor to the metropolitan Atlanta area. Now to get to the heart of the matter with regard to SB 552 and 553. They are almost identical bills, and I have provided for you today concise bill summaries so that you don't have to go through reading the 30-page document, long form, which constitutes the actual bills. We are going to, if allowed by the Senate and the House, if the voters decide that we will create cities, we're going to create two cities with very small governments. Our bills contemplate creating two cities, each with 5-person part-time city council members, with a part-time mayor and with a county manager form of government. We were fortunate enough to have a very capable council guide us through this process, and Joe Young, who is a former lawyer for the governor, was kind enough to offer his services as we developed this legislation. And David Bundrick has been the attorney within the Office of Legislative Counsel. So we have used the experience that Sandy Springs had, and we really tracked that very closely. And that's where we are right now. So the bill constitutes a November 2006 election at this time. In the event that that referendum fails, there would be an additional opportunity for voters to have a referendum in November of 2007. If after that time voters had not decided to incorporate, then we would remain as we are, which is an unincorporated area. But with the cities that are being created in the north of the county, I felt that I had an obligation, and I believe my colleagues agree, to make sure that our citizens had a right for self-determination, especially since it is a more than likely chance that we're going to be forced to pay substantially increased tax rates as a result of the cityhood process which is taking place in the north. That said, Mr. Chairman, I will now yield for any questions. Before I take questions, I would like to add one point. I want to let the committee know that I certainly understand, being fortunate enough to represent 7 cities, that the map as we contemplated today certainly creates challenges for cities that exist. And I know that the mayors of the South Fulton cities have a fair concern about being landlocked. But I would add that as we've gone throughout South Fulton County, this land has been available for annexation for more than 100 years. I've made myself available to anyone who wants to meet with me, and I remain willing to do so. But the cities that would be landlocked would be the city of Palmetto, the city of Fairburn, the city of College Park, the city of East Point to a great extent. The city of Atlanta would also face challenges with expansion as well. So I commit to the committee, even to this date, to work with anyone. Excuse me?
Union City.
Oh, no, I apologize. And Union City. That said, I just wanted to answer any questions that we have and let everyone know that I'm willing to work with anyone that would like to work with me, but that there is a very strong desire by the 55 to 50 to 60,000 people who live in the unincorporated areas to have a vote for self-determination. That said, I will pass the mic to Representative Bruce for any comments he may or may not want to make.
Representative Bruce, Senator Reed, if I could, I think you said 2007 the last time, but the vote is 2006, right? I may have misheard. I was looking at something.
No, you did not mishear, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
The referendum, it actually has two opportunities for a referendum in it. It has an opportunity in 2006, and it has an opportunity in 2007. The thinking is that if there was a real concern, which we heard all over the county, that if we were not prepared and the vote failed for lack of preparation based upon being uncomfortable, based upon information, there are a couple of important things that are going to happen, Mr. Chairman. Fulton County will go through its budget cycle. So the people in unincorporated South Fulton will know what the repercussions of the new cities in the north will have on them. And if those repercussions are not as grave as we believe they are today, then voters may decide that they want to remain unincorporated. Candidly, even at 7.5 mills today, Fulton County, or the citizens of South Fulton County still have among the lowest millage rates. Palmetto has a 4.5 millage rate, and Fairburn has a 4.5 millage rate. So they are lower, but within the metro area and certainly within the city area, 7.5 is still below the majority of the cities who are close to us. So you did not read incorrectly.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Bruce. We also have a couple of other representatives from the area. I know Representative Flood, I'm sorry, and Sharon Beasley Teague, I know has been in a meeting shortly previous to this. And certainly let you speak as well, Representative Flood, as soon as Representative Bruce is done. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I will be brief because it's obvious there are a number of people who like to speak regarding these bills. But as the Senator has said, we have gone all over the county, talking to people, asking questions, trying to understand how people feel about incorporation. And overwhelmingly, people are saying, give us the choice, give us the opportunity. And the reality is that we have been told, I spoke directly with the speaker and some others, and we were told that there were so many cities across this, so many places across the state that were trying to become cities, and it was quite frankly a little scary to everybody that everybody wanted to be a city. And as you know, this 3-mile rule is a possibility. So we said, we needed to do this, and we need to do it this year. And everybody's agreed to do it. So at this point, everyone simply wants the choice. They want to be able to do that. And we're going to spend the next several months prior to November gathering as much data. We've already started the process, gathering as much data, as much information as possible so that everybody can make an informed decision when they go to the polls in November. So that's what this is about, giving people a choice, giving an opportunity to decide what it is that they want, how they want to be governed. And that's how we'd ask you to look at this thing. Thank you very much.
Any questions of the committee for the Senator or the representative? Mr. Chairman.
The actual numbers as far as what the anticipated millage would be cost of services incorporated as opposed to cost of services for the citizens not incorporated?
Well, at the non-incorporated, we've had a study done by a professor from Georgia State. And what he has shared with us is that if you incorporate the city without the Fulton Industrial District, it will almost balance and probably be $1 million in the black. So right now, the dollar amount, and a representative from Fulton County, Mrs. Hutchins, is here today, but the dollar amount that was spent out of the Special Services District for South Fulton County, Mr. Chairman, was about $19 million. So the tax increase that I referenced really was the 3 mil. A mill in Fulton County is worth about $2 million. The tax increase that I referenced was a 3 mil increase, which provided $6 million, and then about 12 to 15 million was moved from a surplus at Fulton County, so that the tax increase on our citizens wouldn't be that grave. And that's really what's caused the fear, because that was a one-time solution, Mr. Chairman. So while that worked for this year, with the creation of the 2 new cities, then we face that same prospect next year, and we may not be able, candidly, to get the votes to do that again. So what we're trying to figure out is how to fund the city appropriately, Mr. Chairman, on an ongoing basis. The initial report that we funded by Georgia State suggests that the South Fulton area can fund itself and be $1 million in the black if you have the area that's marked in purple incorporated.
Do you mind if I follow up? At what millage rate, Senator?
At 7.5 or 8.3 mils, and I believe that number would probably have to be a little higher. I mean, we have one final piece of legislation that's coming to the House on tomorrow, which would allow you to include the Fulton industrial area. That could really make this area thrive. The fortunate circumstance that Sandy Springs had was very strong commercial. I mean, that was actually one of the problems that made the citizens want to leave, but it was also a blessing from a revenue standpoint. So they had a very strong commercial base. That's the real challenge that we face in South Fulton. But Fulton Industrial would be in the city of South Fulton. So we wouldn't be changing the tax formula on the Fulton Industrial. We would not be adding educational taxes to Fulton Industrial, but it's where the money would go. So the revenue from the Fulton Industrial Corridor, which is one of the 5 largest commercial tracts in Metro Atlanta, would really put our city in a very strong fiscal position. So I hope I answered your question.
Senator Reid, if I may, the Fulton Industrial District, it has a special constitutional issue.
Sure.
Would you go over that briefly, just
Absolutely.
As the committee
No problem,
are
Mr.
aware of
Chairman.
what that does?
Sure. We have a bill that should have moved today. It will certainly move in the morning, which is really a companion piece of legislation that addresses the constitutional issue the chairman raised. Basically, about 20 years ago, members of the General Assembly placed a prohibition upon any municipality incorporating the Fulton Industrial Boulevard District, which is that area at the top tier of the purple part of the map. And they prohibited any school taxes from being levied on the Fulton Industrial District. So in order to, while that is geographically located in the South Fulton County area, or the city of South Fulton area, in order to access any of the tax revenue or include it in the city, you have to have a county-wide referendum to repeal that protection. Now, I do want to be very clear for the members of the committee and for the audience. We will not attempt to touch the educational exemption at all. So I don't want anybody to hear that the tax status of the Fulton Industrial District will change. It will merely be in the city of South Fulton. So the Fulton Industrial Boulevard exemption on educational taxes will remain, but the revenue from the Fulton Industrial Corridor will no longer go to the general fund of Fulton County. It will go to the city of South Fulton. And South Fulton has 2 critical areas that it needs in order to survive. One is the Oakley Industrial Station, which is in the southern portion of the district, and the other is the Fulton Industrial portion of the district. If it has those 2 areas in it, then the city can thrive. You know, I want to also be clear on something else, Mr. Chairman. I nor the other representatives here before this committee saying woe is me or crying at all. The bottom line is that the future of South Fulton is strong. We currently have 20,000 single-family home permits that have been issued in the South Fulton County area. So we're attracting population. Our schools are flourishing, busting at the seams. We're becoming a premier bedroom community in the state. So what I see happening is us needing to get through the next 24 to 36 month period, which candidly is going to involve some pain. But what we're seeing right now are votes at the countywide level that in our judgment and in the judgment of people that I represent having an adverse effect on us. I'll give you one specific example so there's no question about what the issue is. Number one, we had no idea that the 3 mil tax increase was coming. And the 3 mil tax increase was appropriate, and I agree with Commissioner Edwards, and he moved that tax increase because he wanted to protect police and fire services, and it had to be funded. But from a planning standpoint, our families that were at home planning their budgets didn't have an opportunity to plan for this down the road. The other thing is that the Schaefer Amendment, as you know, was placed into the Sandy Springs bill in the conference committee. So it wasn't like the Schaefer Amendment was a part of the open debate. And what the Schaefer Amendment did was to cause Fulton County to be broken down into 33 silos. It basically said, as you all know, that you can't spend money in any place else other than the place where the tax was generated. So those two things created kind of a perfect storm on South Fulton County. The other thing that happened is because of the massive amount of construction, new home construction that we have in South Fulton, our commissioner, Commissioner Bill Edwards, put forth a resolution calling for a 6-month moratorium because we had so much construction in the pipeline, Mr. Chairman. And the people who've lived there, I've lived in unincorporated South Fulton my entire life. The people that lived there were concerned about what was being built, how it was being built, was it meeting our standards? And that vote, the commissioner for South Fulton put that forth, and it was defeated. So here you have people who lived here their whole lives. You've got multiple generations, certainly in the farming community in South Fulton, and they're being told that you're going to put up a 400 home development that's completely inconsistent with the nature of that part of the county. And we have the green space in Metro Atlanta. I mean, that right there is 177,000 acres. The brown part is 40,000 acres. The purple part is more than 80,000 acres. To give you some context, the entire city of Atlanta is only 85,000 acres. So I just wanted, I didn't want the committee to feel that we were here saying, woe is me, because the future is with us, and I believe we will be very strong. But we have to lead our community through the next 36 months to 48 months, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Bruce, do you want to add anything? Members of the committee have any further questions for Senator and the representative? Representative Flood, is he still with us? Certainly give you and Representative Beasley Teague an opportunity to speak if you would, and then we'll allow some input from the committee. I'm sorry, from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I, too, as Senator Reed and Representative Bruce and Representative Teague and others, have attended a number of meetings around South Fulton discussing the issue of incorporation and the rationale for having this dialogue and this debate and having this meeting, in fact, here today as a result of things that are really happening outside of the affected area. I think Senator Reed pointed out clearly that there was not a groundswell of interest in becoming a city that prompted this, but the fact that there would be, as the other areas of the county became incorporated, there would be an area of the county that would be adversely impacted by that. And so we felt that it is incumbent upon us to give people the option of not only give them the option, but helping them to be educated about the scenario that they're faced with. The options are to stay in an unincorporated region of the county that is the only part of the county that is unincorporated, and deal with the ramifications of the political and economic challenges that the county may or may not have. The other alternative would be to allow them to have more control of their destiny and to opt into a municipality of their own. And it is absolutely imperative to me that people have that option to choose, but that they also have enough information about the implications of both staying in an unincorporated area and becoming a part of the city, because there are pros and cons to each. And what we've tried to do is to share with people as much as we know that there are pluses and minuses to either decision, but that it is important that people have the opportunity to make that decision for themselves. And so that's what we are attempting to do with moving forward on this process. And it is unfortunately that we've got a kind of a hard stop because of some potential limitations on those options being available. As we all know, that if we don't have the referendum this year, we may not have the opportunity to give that choice in future years. So there's been a lot of work done on this. We've spent countless hours talking to people and getting input, and there's still more work that needs to be done. But I think it's important that the citizens in unincorporated South Fulton be given the choice of whether they want to become a part of a new city or choose to opt out of that option.
I'm sorry, any questions for Representative Flood? Representative Teague?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I got the flu. I have the flu, that's why I'm leaning and whatnot. I've lived in South Fulton County for 35 years, and one of the things that I've always felt like was if we have other cities to be created, then that 3-mile zone, that we would wind up having to become a city. And that's really what all this is about for me. We fought it as long as we could for the 14 years that I've been here, the city of Sandy Springs, because we didn't have enough information to say what the outcome would be once it was developed. Now we know. We don't know all of it, but we know enough in unincorporated, which is where I live, that we don't need to be out here unincorporated from now on. We need to give us the opportunity to vote, just like Sandy Springs, and let us decide what we really want. And the real, I guess the question then would become local control. And our taxes are going up, and we have no say-so other than this is what you're going to have to pay because we have other cities to get out. So I would appreciate it if each and every one of you would support this measure so that we can give the rest of the community opportunity to vote on which way they want to go. I'm sorry, that's my phone. I forgot to cut it off. But it's important to me and all of my neighbors. Representative Brooks, he knows I've lived out there all these years and sold property in that area for over 30-something years. So it's incumbent upon us as being in the legislature to at least try to work it out for the best of most of the people in the district as much as possible. And I'm willing to do whatever we need to try to get, some of the problems worked out. But the real deal is we need the right to vote to determine our livelihood. Thank you.
I think that was Representative Brooks calling you.
Oh, Lord.
Any questions of Representative Teague?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
We have we've got about 15 people that have signed up to speak on the legislation. If there are other people that would like to sign up that have not signed up yet, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and do that. And I think from now on we may take the testimony from the podium instead of bringing people forward. Senator would you, you're welcome to join us, or would you do me a favor and move that microphone to the, he can, I think GPB would like you to move theirs as well. Thanks.
What number are you?
18.
Representative Buckner.
What is the purpose of this study on the city of Campbell that's in our folder? Since there's not been any comments about that.
City of Campbell was the working name for the city of South Fulton. So the city of Campbell was just the old name for what would be the city of South Fulton.
Thank you.
What's that?
No, we've got about 15 people that want to speak. Don't want to set a time limit at this stage, but would ask that you consider that there are several others behind you, and if necessary, we would ask you to allow us to move on to the next person. Rex Renfro from Fairburn.
Thank you very much. I represent a group who's been the guiding committee to look at this. What we're here today to do is ask you just for the opportunity to determine our own destiny and to be able to vote on whether or not to be a new city. What we decided to do was, rather than having all these people come talk to you, I thought I would just introduce them to you, let you know that what we represent in that purple district is every area up there. You have people here. You have Nick Nicholson from the Oakley area and from Fife. You have Sandra Hardy, who put the first CID down in the Oakley Majestic area together. You have Bruce Moody from Cliftondale, one of the large communities. You have Chuck Miller and his wife from Cedar Grove. You have Jacole Burton, who's the developer of Twin Lakes, the Brian Jordan development. You have Holman Edwards, who is here from Edmonds, I always say that wrong, and he'll be speaking in a minute. We have people on the committee from Majestic, we have people on the committee from Fulton Industrial, and we have bound together over the last few years. We actually started this committee in the year 2000. It began to take major form when the Blue Ribbon Committee from Fulton County was formed, and it became readily apparent that Johns Creek and Milton, which are now on the governor's desk for signature, we're going to go forward this year as cities, leaving us as the only unincorporated area in Fulton County. So out of that committee, we have raised over $100,000. The reports that you have in your desk, we paid for from Dr. Eggers at Georgia State, who will talk to you later about the viability, looking at whether or not this area was in fact going to be viable. Those reports show that it is. And what we would now like the opportunity to do is create a business plan to look at this new city. What we just want is the opportunity to determine our own fate. That's where we are now. That's what we're asking you for. We have a website in which we've committed to get all of the information out to the citizens of South Fulton. You can go on that website. It's southfultonconcernedcitizens.org. Anybody can post on that site. It's interactive so that the questions can be answered, and we will keep doing that. We have looked at a number of things, and we know that the mayors have some issues. We would hope that in the time available to us to look at and to study this issue of whether to become a city, they would come forward with their plans on what they believe they could deliver services. To us, the issue is the deliverance of services in the most efficient form. And that's what we're requesting from you, is the opportunity to vote and study that. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Mr. Renfro, may I ask you a quick
Sure.
question? You have a Fairburn address. Do you live inside the city limits, or do you live outside the city limits?
No, I live in the middle of that purple area. I own a little nursery up there.
Okay, thank you. Representative Oliver, you had a question.
It would be helpful to me, and I don't know how many many of you would be able to do this, but it would be helpful to me if you would tell me whether you support specifically these two bills that are before the committee, and if you have issues that you differ with in these 552 and 553, I'd be interested in that.
552 is the bill that I'm speaking to. That's the bill for South Fulton. And I don't know, ma'am, about issues. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that's ever been written that I totally agreed with and didn't agree with. What I will tell you is that Senator Reid has done a yeoman's job. It's almost like Solomon trying to hold all this together, and we appreciate it, and we support that bill, and we would ask for your vote to vote it to pass.
Thank you. I'm just curious if there are specific issues of conflict within these drafts, if anybody has any thoughts on focusing on that, that'd be helpful to me.
Not that I know of, but I'll find out, and if we do, we'll let you know. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bruce Moody.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I would like to also reiterate much of what was said before. I won't be redundant, so I'm going to be very brief. I represent Cliftondale, which is one of the largest areas, a very diverse population. And one of the things that we are really asking for is that you give us an opportunity for self-determination. More than anything else, we want the opportunity of choice. Many of the people who live in my community, to be quite honest, are not absolutely sure of whether or not they want to become a city. But they do know one thing. They know that they want a choice. They don't want to be told what they have to do. The other thing that they're concerned about is they do not wish to be annexed by anyone from any side, north, west, east, south. What we want more than anything is the same opportunity that was afforded to all of the other citizens in Georgia, especially on the north side of Fulton. If you would give us that opportunity, we will work as hard as we possibly can. As a matter of fact, we've been working extremely hard now, attempting to get out the information, something that Senator Reid has been extremely adept at doing, and getting out the people so that they understand what the issues are. So I'm imploring you, please give all due consideration to the Bill 552. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Dr. Egger? Dr. Egger, if you would, for the benefit of the committee, would you give us a little bit of your background
Sure.
and how you're involved in this process?
No problem. I'm Dr. Robert Egger. I am at the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies at Georgia State University. My background is in finance, in public administration, which is where my PhD resides. I currently am a professor of public administration and urban studies. I teach both sides of the financial management, that is nonprofit and public. I also teach governmental accounting and municipal finance. So my background is quite municipal and quite specific to the question. I am the author of both studies, that is on both bills, 552 and 553. I was hired by both entities, that is Chattahoochee Hills and the city of South Fulton, which used to be the city of Campbell when I first wrote it up. Both cities are viable given the current level of services. It is our understanding, my understanding, especially from meeting with all the county agency heads that are in the SSD, that currently South Fulton in particular can grow into its current set of services. In other words, as it grows, it does not need at this point to change its police or fire structure, which is the majority of its cost, in fact about 63% of its cost. Currently, the mill levy was raised to 7.731, an increase of 3 mil from 4.731, which was the original SSD. That occurred on February 1st at the county commission. That millage only covers roughly 60%, well 50%, of the current debt structure that would occur in the year 2007. So right now, the city, the county area called South Fulton would be roughly $12 million in the red come 2007. To get that away, to eliminate that, the millage would have to increase roughly 3.5 mils, putting it at about 11.5 mils. The cities are asking you, through the work from me, about the financial viability of the cities, which I believe I have established, whether or not you will give them the opportunity to choose their own destiny.
Dr. Egger, if I may, if you've got the number, the 3 mil increase on a $150,000 residence or a residence of a certain stated value, can you give us the value of the residence and what that millage rate increase equated to in dollars? Do you have that with you by any chance?
I don't believe. Let me check.
That's fine. We can get that. I'd be interested in seeing what the 3 mil increase equated to.
If I recall correctly, it's about 10% of the current property tax. So if you own a piece of property, your taxes rose by approximately 10% of the bill. So if the bill was $5,000, your taxes rose $500. Is roughly what the estimate is.
Senator Reed.
Dr. Eager, I just want to thank you for the work you did on both of these cities, but I would ask one question for the committee's consideration. Would you? It is accurate that your estimate in your report does not include the Fulton industrial area. Is that correct?
In fact, the end dollar that you see for South Fulton does not include either Fulton Industrial or Oakley. By the year 2010, they are in the black roughly about $5 million without those two industrial areas.
Can you give the committee, may I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can you give the committee your opinion on how the city of South Fulton would perform with both of those entities?
With both of the entities, we estimated out that if the city of South Fulton had both currently, in other words, as of today, the year 2006, and they held the current set of services that they currently receive from the county of Fulton, they would be negative $208,000. By the year 2008, they would be positive roughly $1 million. So we know that they can't become a city in 06 because 06 is passed. So the estimates that's really important is the estimate for 08 when they would receive cityhood, which they are in the black.
Thank you. Representative Oliver.
I believe y'all are making some assumptions, and I'm looking at page 5 and 6 of your document on Chattahoochee Hill, and I just want to, this is maybe too simplistic a question, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
You are assuming that the new cities are going to provide all these services, and that you've listed here, but you're not assuming that they're going to create them themselves or that they're going to contract with somebody else, or do I need to know that?
Yes, in some respects. The way I have it set up, and the reason I kept the same set of services, was my assumption would be that initially they would contract with the county of Fulton. They are not right now. I did not estimate out them on a standalone, and the reason was because I have them purchasing all the assets that the county of Fulton currently has, so it's just an easy shift. But what I did was I figured, the startup cost, there's no reason to absorb the startup cost if they can work a deal with the county of Fulton.
And therefore, I'm also assuming that the city of, if there's a city of South Fulton and city of Chattahoochee Hills, that they'll make that decision in the future based on whatever the facts are at that time.
Absolutely. In fact, they've asked the legislature, you folks, to commission a study through the Andrew Young School to look at a long-term plan on both operations and capital.
So your services here are based on the assumption of that the services would cost these new cities what it costs to provide them at Fulton County?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Chairman O'Neill.
I actually have a couple of questions. It may just be one, but might even get me to the connection.
Okay.
Service delivery strategies that came out of House Bill 489 in 1997. To your knowledge, does any of this proposal violate any of those intergovernmental contracts in any way?
No, sir.
Have you
To my knowledge.
Have you looked into that?
Yes, I have. And it's my understanding that they would not violate the agreement so long as the contractual agreement was between them and the county.
This is certainly impressive work, and I mean that sincerely,
Well, thank you.
not unsincerely. It seems to be comprehensive, but I want to ask you the real one hard question.
Okay.
Whose ox is being gored if we do this? Who would not want us to allow what I personally think is the right of one vote, one person for our own destiny in this country? I think that's what we stand for. Why wouldn't I want to do this? I mean, who's going to be hurt if I do, I guess?
The only shift in funds would be the shift in funds on the lost, the local option sales tax. The county of Fulton, by state law, would have to return that sales tax money per population to the new incorporated city. That's why you see the new incorporated cities, both Chattahoochee Hill and the city of South Fulton, in the black or approaching the black. And the reason is because the shift is from the lost. The LOST for the city of South Fulton is approximately $14 million. Without that, the city of South Fulton is short monetarily, but by law, they get the loss. So they'll get the local option sales tax. So no one is, technically the person hurt is no one. I mean, there's no one who loses in the deal. Like with Sandy Springs, when Sandy Springs exited, that money was moved, right, from North Fulton to South. Okay, South Fulton no longer, at its current population growth, needs that necessary benefit for the next 2 years. They'll need it. But after that 2 years, they should be fiscally fine.
One quick follow-up, if I might. Aspects of things like insurance premium tax allocation, franchise fees, cable, TV, phone, gas if it's there, those kind of things. What's the ramifications of that? Is there going to be a loss of those or a transfer of those into the city from what heretofore might have been the unincorporated area to where those left in the unincorporated area may be aggrieved?
I left everything that you don't see with the county. And I did not assume any services beyond what they currently got in the SSD. So I left the county technically whole, except for the LOST.
Those don't typically go with I know they do with an annexation typically. Why wouldn't they?
They would go with it because they're a fee and charge. But I didn't. I mean, as you can find out, as you can read through it, I'm a very conservative estimator. I tend not to be very pie-in-the-sky guy. And so I didn't give them that money to show them that the revenue would still make it. I mean, that was important on the initial study to be very conservative. High expenditures, low revenues.
Representative Oliver.
Just a quick follow-up on the tax service districts, because we're having a dispute in DeKalb County about that.
Okay.
The 1980, the recent law, 489, would your new city go in on a presumption, no presumption, even playing field on the purchase of, or would you have a presumption of the cost? Does that statute determine that contracting opportunity? The 489 statute, do you know?
I mean, if it goes by, I mean, as you're well aware of, right, it really goes by how the structure of what services are delivered are contracted. Right now, the way they had asked me to do it was the contract was with the county. Okay. Therefore, I didn't violate it.
Okay, well, don't do it how DeKalb did it.
Okay. I tried really hard not to.
Any further questions, Dr. Egger? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. and the
Thank
committee.
you. And we've got, when you come to speak, if you approach 5 minutes, I'm going to alert you, and we need to try to hold it there at this stage. We've got room until 6 o'clock, and we have 16 speakers left. So with that said, we've got Rodney Peak.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Rodney Peak, and I'm here with my dad, sitting right over there. And I've lived in the Chattahoochee Hill Country, close to about a mile north of the Coweta County line all my life. I'm the 5th generation to grow up here. I have a son. He's the 6th generation to grow up there. And Senate Bill 553, which would call for referendum for the city of the Chattahoochee Hill Country, I fully support. I think me being raised in the country with, I guess, the farms and the cows, exactly what I want for my son. And that's rare. I think it's rare these days that there's still that country, the green space available for your children to enjoy. I think a lot of people where I live that have been there all their life, you take it for granted. And when some of the new people that are moving in with some of the growth we're having, they're just wowed by the community, the landscape, the great area we live in. And so I fully support the Chattahoochee Hill Country. I'm a board member of the Chattahoochee Hill Country, represent about 300 members. I'm excited about living in the Hill Country with the overlay district and the green space protection, et cetera. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephen Kopelman.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Kopelman, and I just want to speak briefly to the point about the community in the Chattahoochee Hill Country. The concept and the vision that the community has that was born several years ago as a grassroots idea and concept, and has grown over the past several years to include board members, team leaders, different committees and groups that have all banded together in support of the vision of the Chattahoochee Hill Country and the preservation of the green space. So a incorporation of the city now is a natural step in the development of the concept of the overlay district that had input from the community through a number of workshops and discussion sessions. And this is just a natural step to furthering and ensuring the vision of the overlay district of the Chattahoochee Hill Country. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Mosby.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, too, am stricken with the bug that has everybody in Atlanta, so please forgive my voice if it's breaking. I just have a couple of things that I want to say, and I also don't want to be redundant. I know you're going to be hearing probably a lot of the same concerns and ideas, but I wanted to preface my conversation by saying that as a resident of the South Fulton area, and I think I can speak for all of us, yes, we want the opportunity to vote on how we are going to move forward as a city or as an unincorporated area. And I would like to, again, assure you that we are taking this very seriously. I think most of us are trying to approach it as a business plan. I want to know that the numbers are there. I want to know that the rationale and that the viability is actually there and appropriate before I make a decision. It is my understanding, though, that the time is now, and if we don't have the opportunity to vote on this, that this would have passed us by. That being said, I think that we are all very hopeful that we would be able to move forward as a city because of all of the reasons that everyone else has been talking about. We live in a very, very unique part of the Atlanta area. I'm actually an in-town resident of Atlanta for many, many years and have moved to South Fulton County only a couple of years ago. And I have children. I am friends with Rodney, and his little boy and my little boy are very close. And we are able to offer them something that we can't offer if we are in the situation where there will be unchecked growth, where we can't control our zonings, where we can't stay involved. You heard the 20,000 number. That is a huge potential impact on us, and we want to be able to have the security and know that all of the hard work that we have done on that overlay district is going to stay intact. I'm sure you're all very aware of what that is. But given more local control, we can more tightly control that particular piece of the overlay of our area and govern the growth in a smart way with by using the overlay district. I just wanted to say a couple of other things as well. One of the things that I think is also key is that this really does provide a model for not only Georgia but for the rest of the country. As a metropolitan area, we have this much green space is not typically left in a major metropolitan area, and I think we have an opportunity to be able to set new standards for smart growth, for sustainability practices. People are beginning to look to us from all over the United States and some even international things about what we're doing and how we're doing this, and does this new model present a way for other places to be looking to do their own growth? I think it'd be a great feather in Georgia's cap, and certainly in Metro Atlanta's, in our area, in our county's cap, to be able to say that we champion this cause. The only other thing that I will say is that I think that part of what we are championing is a very intangible thing. While I want to know the numbers and I want to know the facts, I also can't stress the importance of being able to keep our green space, to be able to keep dark sky. When I go to bed at night, it's black outside. I'm not looking at city lights. I'm not looking at street lamps along a roadway. And all of these things are very, very important. We have chosen to live in this particular area for very, very explicit reasons. And it is very different. It's a different culture. It's a different community than living in town or certainly in the north of Atlanta. And again, I just would hope that you would offer us the opportunity to be able to do our research and to do our due diligence and be able to come together as a community and present what it is that we want with a vote on both of these referendums. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Terrell Jacobs.
I'm going to yield the rest of my balance of my time to another citizen of Union City. I am a citizen of Union City, and I want to speak to you in respect to Senate Bill 552. I'll yield the rest of my time to Camelia Moore, who's also a citizen as well. Our issue in hand, I had something prepared, and after all the discussion, I just want to read a little bit of it, but I want to talk about some points of issue that I have relative to, I think Union City has as a government relative to this, and also our citizens. And I also say some of the other municipalities who are in this room today as well. The proposal of the incorporated South Fulton was born from citizens' concerns about the future and how they would determine their destiny. However, as an idea or proposal is born, nurtured, and formed into reality, there should always be some consideration of how it would impact others around them. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The issue at hand from our standpoint is protecting our interests, our communities that are already existing right now. As this proposal, as this bill moves forward, it in essence provides a very strangling issue on those existing cities right now in South Fulton. What it does, it does not give us that opportunity. It landlocks us primarily, even though I've heard some of the legislators state that, well, you're going to be landlocked anyway. Well, we would be landlocked from the standpoint where it would constrain our abilities to grow and have a viable city as we currently do right now. The dialogue with municipalities were never materialized to the discussion of the detail of how we would interact with this bill and how it would impact us to that specific. The study that was done reports that the Fulton Industrial nor Oakley Industrial was needed to make this a new city to be viable. But we're hearing now that to pretty much pursuively go forward, that it needs to be included in that aspect, and that's going to be a companion piece to this as it moves forward with the Fulton Industrial. Here's my point, and I'll close it to yield the rest of my time. It seems to me that there's a vision, and I don't think any of the municipalities have a major issue with whatever the citizens' concerns is about having their self-determination. But the issue at hand is the viability of the existing city weighs in the fate of your hands. And we have a right, just as these individual citizens have a right, to have our self-determination. And it seems as though the slippery slope is already heading down a road to constrain the existing cities to once it will be no more cities. And it seems as though we're being attacked at will by the powers in and around this whole issue. We just want the ability to stay viable, stay existent. We have a quality of life that we can appreciate, that we want, and we want to maintain. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate and the House. My name is Camilla Moore. I am the wife of Mayor Moore in Union City, who's somewhere in traffic. So he called and I'm here. What I would like to say on our behalf is that a number of years ago, you required cities to develop smart growth plans, where you asked us to come up with comprehensive land use plans, and those plans had to be adopted by the local county jurisdiction. We did that. We know that when you passed the legislation that you intended us to follow those instructions. So for the last couple of years, what Union City has done, we've done what you've asked us to do. You've asked us to look at our growth rate, our anticipated growth, and to come up with a plan for the future. We did, a couple of years ago, we developed what we call an annexation plan. And we have been in pursuit of implementing that annexation plan for the last 5 years. My husband says he has no problem with incorporation. The issue is, if you asked us to do something over 8 years ago, and we have been in the process of complying with the mandate that you've given us as a jurisdiction, and we're in the middle of accomplishing that goal, then to come back and say that a plan that we adopted, that we talked to citizens about, that we got Fulton County to sign off on, now is invalid. That is the issue for us. What we would like for you to do is, in the incorporation of these cities, is to acknowledge that cities who produce a land use plan which involve annexation over a period of time be permitted the option to pursue that dream. We've spent resources, we've spent staff time, we've spent town hall meetings preparing individuals who are not particularly in our boundary right now with the option to come into our boundaries, letting them know that you might not be in this year, but you may be in next year, gradually doing what you expect governments to do. That is, gradually pursue, gradually deal with capacity issues, and let those future homeowners know that there's an opportunity for them to move within a particular city. That is our request of you today. It's not a question of whether or not someone has the right for local control. It's not a question of whether or not there should be 2 southern cities. What we're asking is that for those municipalities who for the last 8 to 5 years spent time and resources to develop an annexation plan which we feel was viable and reasonable, that we have an opportunity to have you acknowledge those boundaries when this goes to the ballot. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chairman O'Neill, you've got a question?
What you're saying and how it relates to the legislation you're talking about. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but you feel like that as a city, since there was a city-county agreement that evolved out of 489, I think it was in 97, that even though these people that own this property, that have paid the burden of taxation, developed it, lived on it, all those things, and all the expenses associated with it, you think the city's interest is greater than theirs? In other words, government trumps private property. If they don't want to be in your city, you think you should be able to withhold what they want to do with their own property until they need your services at a level that they just have no choice but to come in the city. Is that what I'm
No.
saying?
Let me clarify exactly what I am saying
I must
and make
have misunderstood
it, just simplify it. we have proposed what we call a 2-mile radius. That has always been our furthest point of our annexation plan. What we would suggest is that on election day, because we have always had communication with those property owners that within that 2-mile radius that are not in the city, that they would one day have the opportunity to be annexed if they so chose. What we're asking you to do that on the day of the ballot, that in the boundary that you draw for the new city, that you give the people in that 2-mile radius an option. That's what we're saying. That they can either choose to go into the new city of Campbell, or they can choose to come into the city of Union City based on a 5-year discussion of an annexation plan and agreement and discussion between them and between the two groups. And if they choose to go into the new city, that's okay. But at least we would have had the opportunity, based on years of working with these groups and property owners, that we have an opportunity. And I think we feel we have an obligation, because we made that commitment to give them that choice, to still give them the choice. That's what we're saying. So when you establish the boundaries, that the boundary of that 2-mile radius would allow the individuals in that area to vote.
One quick follow-up. What if there's no contiguousness? What if this, I think the law right now says we're not allowed to do annexations that would cause what they call islands.
That's absolutely correct.
What if somebody 2 miles away wanted to come in and somebody a quarter of a mile away didn't want to, and there's no contiguous use?
Well, let me just add, I think your legislation has been very clear on that, and I think that's why you ask cities to participate in smart growth. I think that's why you asked us to develop comprehensive land use plans, annexation plans that will be adopted by the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County to ensure that that does not happen. So if you look at our map, which we have presented to some of you, you will see that the individuals that are within that 2-mile radius are individual property owners that came to us. Okay, and over a 5-year period, we have worked on an annexation plan. Now, sure, tomorrow, they may say that those conversations and dialogues that we've had over a period of time, they now want to go somewhere else. That's okay. But what we're saying is that today, our plan does not provide for the existence of islands. Based on years of conversation and dialogues that we've had with the property owners who requested, not recently, not a year ago, but several years ago, to be a part of a long-range annexation plan and a comprehensive land use plan.
Senator Reid, I'm using some discretion in allowing you to ask questions, but I'm going to...
Mr. Chairman, I respect the rules.
Thank you. Charles Phillips.
I'm Charles Phillips. I'm a city councilman with the city of College Park. And I would want to speak to an issue similar to what she mentioned about being landlocked. Although we don't have an annexation plan, we have a communities who have come to us asking us to annex them. And this has been recently. I think that the fair thing to do would be able to give the people two choices. One would be whether or not they want to be annexed in an existing city. And then the second would be the choice of whether or not they want to go with a new city. And by doing that, I think it's fair to them and also fair to us, who will be locked in, landlocked, under the current plan. So if you want to give choices, we ask you to give them one more choice, and that's to be annexed if they want to be annexed. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Legino?
I'm Jack Longino. I'm the mayor of the city of College Park. Appreciate it, Chairman, and the rest of the representatives and Senator Cassine Reed. We're concerned about landlocking. College Park of all the cities is more unique than any. We've given up 50% of our population for the growth of Hartsfield-Jackson. We've given up 50% of our land mass. It's not exact, but that's very close. If this happens, we will not be able to grow. And in the past, we haven't had council that was willing to grow. We today have council members that are willing to grow College Park. We're probably in as good a financial shape as any city in the metropolitan Atlanta area. We can afford to grow. We want to do smart growth. But if this happens, College Park is going to be stagnated now by another city known as South Fulton City. And I agree, I think folks should have a choice. And I agree that something needs to happen in South Fulton County. And I agree that this is probably a pretty good plan, with the exception of what it does to the 6 existing cities. And what it does to the 6 existing cities is it says to us, where you are is where that is all you will ever be. And I've heard some say, well, we've had years to grow. As you know, and I know, it takes a group being willing to grow. It costs to grow. It will cost the citizens of South Fulton County, South Fulton cities to grow. I've heard folks talk about protection of land. We want green space. Well, I got news for you. I don't believe any of that. It's about growth, and Chattahoochee Hills nor South Fulton City would be interested in this if they intended for it to all stay green space, because it's about tax base, and they will have to continue to grow. They will have to continue to have rooftops and businesses to survive. I guess College Park can survive at the size that it is, but I think it really straps us for all we have given up for the region. If it wasn't for Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, the city of Atlanta and the metropolitan Atlanta area would be just like Birmingham. We would not have the suburbs that we have today. So this is the reason that this scares me and concerns me, is because it landlocks every city that's already existing. My plan would be to look at it. We say we can't do it next year. We say we can't do it the next year. Sandy Springs worked at this for 30 years. And a lot of us know that if some folks from outside the Atlanta region had not voted and pushed Sandy Springs, it still wouldn't exist. I think that all the issues need to be looked at in another year and determined. I hear us saying we can't do it. Sandy Springs worked 30 years to do it, and if we need to do it, we'll get together and get it done. Other issue that I want everybody to realize is it puts more hands in the pies to the money that comes to all of us. Some of it comes from Washington, some of it comes from the state, some of it comes from the local. And when we put more hands in that money, it's not going to go as far, and cities that exist today are going to have less. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Tracy Wyatt, is that right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm the city councilman in the city of College Park, and I'm also a little under the weather. I think the mayor spoke, and the other municipalities have spoken about the landlock issue, so I won't spend much time on that. But I hear people coming up here talking about choices, and I think that's important. When we talk about choices, as someone has said, I have personally met with some residents who are right next to the city of College Park, and they've said that they don't want to be a part of a new city. They like what our city do. They like our services. They like to be a part of College Park. So we're going to talk about choices. Then let's give people some choices and not a choice. Some specific things about this bill. Someone asked, well, I want to talk about a couple things specifically concerns me about this bill, and that's a moratorium, I think, that will be placed on existing municipalities when it comes to annexation. They want to give this bill 2 opportunities to pass. Well, if it fails in 06, is this moratorium going to stay with the municipalities? Would it still not allow us to annex until 07? It comes around again? That's an issue of concern to me. I also want to talk about the question was asked, who ox will be gored? Well, I'm here to tell you that I think the answer to that question is the existing municipalities in that area. Nothing in this bill, in my opinion, has addressed any of the concerns of the municipalities that we have. It don't allow us to annex. It's going to stop us from annexing. And it doesn't give the people the right to vote whether or not they want to come into an existing city or be a new city. If they don't want to come to College Park, that's fine. But give them a choice. If we're going to talk about choices, let's be about choices. This bill doesn't do that. Thank you.
Any questions of the committee? Chairman O'Neill.
When you did your service plan with Fulton County and your municipality, did you make investments in the services that are beyond what your needs are now in anticipation of the growth that you could actually quantify for us? That you would lose if the annexations didn't take place.
Okay. That probably would have been a question you probably would have asked the mayor. I'm a newly elected city councilman on there, and I think as he spoke, we have a council now who believes that with the loss of what we lost with Hartsfield Jackson, that is now is the time for us to develop and to grow. So I apologize. I personally can't answer that question, but perhaps our mayor can. I'm fairly new on the council.
When you did your service strategy plan and you entered into the agreement with Fulton County, did you make investments in service, let's call it service potential, like your sewage plant, your stormwater, all of that, treatment facilities and so forth? Are those services augmented beyond your need for them in your current incorporated area in anticipation of growth?
They are.
Is there an investment on the books of your city anticipating growth?
There is, and let me tell you more why there is in any other region. One is because of the shrinkage from Hartsfield Jackson. Our capacity of electricity, sewer, and water is not what it was at one time because of that, and that's another reason that I have, as a mayor for the 3rd time, have been trying to get my people to look at growth. We have to look at ways to grow College Park to sell these services that we already have bought. And this is another reason that we will be locked into this and won't be able to sell those services. We may be able to sell them to another municipality that needs them, but we won't be able to sell them to our own. Does that answer your question?
Any further questions to the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Would you help Mr. Edmond?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Holman Edmond, and thank you for allowing me to appear before you this afternoon. I was born and reared Georgia, reared in Lawrence County. For the last 33 years, I have lived in unincorporated South Fulton. I was proud to see my representative and elected official make that presentation. For the last 2 minutes, we have heard someone wants to grow on this side. Those of us on this side want to exist. So it's growth versus exist. Where are you going to grow from? Out of my heart? We'll talk about that later. Ladies and gentlemen, I appear before you today. Exercising a very basic right of an American, and that is the right to petition your elected officials when you have a problem. And that's what we're doing, but I take pride and I'm thankful that I'm able to do that. I appear before you requesting that you support Senate Bill 552. Now, if I don't say another word, you know why I'm here. This will allow citizens of South Fulton County the right and the opportunity to vote on the future direction of their families and their families' families. In other words, the future. A yes vote by you will give all citizens of South Fulton an opportunity to vote for cityhood or annexation or remain as we are. A fair campaign and a fair vote will be determined by the citizens of the affected areas. The results of the vote will be an expression of the will of the majority. That's I learned that back in 6th grade. That's basic American way. A yes vote by this committee will be the correct action by you, in that you'll be allowing the South Fulton citizens self-determination. I don't have this written here. I'm going to say this and then I'll sit down. In 1952, I was pulling border patrol in Germany, facing the Russian soldiers to defend our way of life. Now, in 2006, there's someone sitting around who doesn't want me to exercise that. I have a problem with that. I ask for your vote and support. Any question?
Mr. Edmond, I think you've been just as clear as anybody that's ever testified before any committee I've ever been before. And I would have bet that you were a veteran prior to your acknowledging it.
I'm going to say this. You and I have met on the phone.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about it.
I remember that.
You remember? Okay.
I sure do. That's been 4 or 5 years ago.
That's a true statement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, committee members.
Mayor Broda.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Mayor Clark Bodie from the city of Palmetto. First, let me thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and just express a couple of concerns that we as cities have. Of course, you've heard some of those already. Right off the bat, let me first say that I support the right of the people in the Chattahoochee Hills and South Fulton to vote to become a city. Being a city is great. I'm part of a city. I want those people out there in those 2 areas to enjoy the same things that we enjoy in the 6 municipalities that are located in South Fulton County. The only problem I have with this, as you've heard from the other cities, is the way this bill was drawn up and the way it's came to you from the Senate with an up or down vote. Either you become a city or you stay unincorporated. I like to think of myself as a realist, and I realize, as I hope most of the people in those areas realize, that unincorporated Fulton County will be no more. There will be 2 more cities in South Fulton County. That's the reality of it. Thus comes the problem of the landlocking the other municipalities that we've talked about. The only thing that I would ask for consideration from you today would be consider 2 amendments to this bill in its current form. One dealing with geographics. In other words, the surrounding areas directly adjacent to the municipalities that currently exist, that those folks be given some sort of an option at the point in time where they realize that they're going to be a new city. And of course, that can only happen after the vote is taken. Now, it's been pointed out to us that, well, if they vote to stay unincorporated, then, we can annex all day long. But that's not going to happen. They're going to vote to be a city. And I commend them for this. They should be a city. But there's, all over South Fulton County, there's mom and pops that's lived there all their life. We've heard from the Peaks in Goods outside of Palmetto and other communities, where people have been there all their lives. And there are still people in South Fulton County, adjacent to these cities, that truly believe that they're going to stay unincorporated. Because when they go to the polls, it's not going to be 100% to become a city. There's going to be people that believe and vote against being a city. But the day after the vote is counted, and they pick up that AJC, and it gives you the results that there's going to be 2 brand new cities, then they're going to wake up and say, wait a minute. I'm going to be in the city. Do I want to be a part of that new city, or do I want to go into Palmetto, Fairburn, Union City, College Park, East Point, somewhere where I'm on the borderline, and I felt a part of that city all these years. I've just elected to be in an unincorporated area. But then that option is taken away from them by virtue of a vote. The other option that I asked to consider is that particular window, some sort of a time frame after this vote is taken before the actual time that they would become a city, become a municipality, that they be given this opportunity to choose to come into one of the existing cities. So the geographical portion of it and the time frame portion of it. And I think those 2 things would, treat the cities fairly. And, we're not going to run out here and do annexation, do cherry picking, create islands, and do all this other stuff that the law doesn't allow. But I think those people should have an option, even after they've elected to become a city, on which city they want to be in. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
Representative Oliver.
Mr. Mayor, I say this, I ask you this question, but I really offer it for the benefit of any of the other folks that have spoken. If there is a specific way as a matter of law that this bill could be drafted to give people of Fulton County options, I'd be happy to see that language from you. How exactly is that going to work as a matter of law and as a matter of practicality? And I'm requesting between now and the time we might possibly vote on this, if anybody wants to give me specific language on that.
Well, obviously it's going to take someone a little bit smarter than me, and preferably with a law degree. We already know that you can't put 3 options on the ballot. Plus, the 3-option deal wouldn't work because you got somebody that 5 miles away from Palmetto checks, I want to be in Palmetto. Well, that's not going to work. And I can't, cannot stand here today and tell you that it would be legal, to put that option in there, the geographical being next to a city, and a small time frame to give those people the option. I don't know. Thank you very much.
Any further questions of the committee? Mark Hennessy.
Mr. Chairman and the other members of the committee, thank you for letting me speak. I have just recently become the 2nd chairman of the Chattahoochee Hill Country Alliance, following Mr. Steve Nygren. The alliance was formed by the residents of the Chattahoochee Hill Country. As we kind of say up in Buckhead, it was a state of mind in the year 2000. With the guidance of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, but more importantly, the residents of the defined area of Chattahoochee Hill Country, they came together and said, let's define who we are in what we want to be and also in a boundary, and we have a boundary up here. I have 2 things to say today. Our citizens really spoke to the essence of the Hill Country, and that is it's a very special place. One item I would like to speak to is the notion we've heard from the mayor of College Park. I can assure you Senate Bill 553 has nothing to do with a matter of a power grab, of tax generation, of grabbing the money. The citizens of this defined area, going back to the year 2000, said, what do we want to do to protect the quality of our life? And by protecting the quality of our life, we save it for everyone else around, in both the metropolitan area and also for the state. So while we know growth is coming, Mr. Nygren will speak to that. 40,000 acres in South Fulton County allow 1 unit per acre. We can build, outside of floodplain, 40,000 units if we want to, and use up the entire
defined area of the hill country. That was not what the citizens, the members of the community asked for. What they asked for were changes in zoning laws. Allow us to use higher density with the stipulation, if the higher density is allowed, we will put in perpetual easements, green space. I can assure the mayor of College Park there is more green space today, and there will certainly be more green space in Chattahoochee Hill Country in my lifetime and in the lifetime for everyone to come. The other thing I'd like to speak about was more just as a private citizen. What I've gone through as chairman of the Chattahoochee Hill Country and as a private citizen, watching Senator Reed, Representative Bruce, Representative Flood, and Representative Teague working together in community meetings, from the International Trade Center at the airport, where we had over 3,000 people, to the RICO Center, talking to 80 and 90 people. This has been a community effort, asking community members what they would like, what their concerns are, and it restored belief in me that as a single citizen, I have input in what's happening to me. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your observations.
Thank you. Steve Nygren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mark Hennessy has said, we are, with the plan that the community came up with, we will use high-density areas to put our growth in specific areas and save a lot of the green space. So growth isn't necessarily about how much land you have, because we're keeping a lot of our land, almost 80% of our land, green, and we'll still put about 20% more people per acre than the rest of the metropolitan area has done in the last 20 years. So the plan would suggest that we would have a green belt around Palmetto. And how wonderful if the city of South Fulton also decided to put green belts around the existing cities, so that we knew when we were driving from one city to the other, as it is in many other parts of the country. Also, I don't think that land mass, we've been used to thinking about land mass is what's needed to grow, and that's not necessarily the case. We should be growing more densely where we already have. And to my friends from College Park, if you've ever been to Crystal City, you'll see there's a lot of room to still grow with the land mass there is. But specifically to 553, we think the time is now. We analyzed whether we should annex into Palmetto or another city. The Chattahoochee Hill Country and the community has come up with a specific image about what the Chattahoochee Hill Country is, and that would not go well under another banner of another city. We have our own identity, and it needs to move forward. The time is now to move forward, because with what happened with Sandy Springs and now the rest of unincorporated North Fulton, Fulton County is about to be reorganized. We are already seeing a lot of the dysfunction in some of the service district areas of the parks. We've now taken over a lot of the community center and the parks because they've had to cut, 160 of their staff people, closing parks. That's happening also in the zoning and building permits. They just cannot function. There's concern within the police and the fire department, because as these departments are being made smaller because of the areas that are incorporating, and because of these other unincorporated areas now moving towards potential incorporation, they're in a period of flux and unknown. So they're losing a lot of key people, and they can't reorganize. So the sooner the vote can happen, the sooner we know what our destiny is, then both the citizens of our new cities and the departments within Fulton County are going to be able to know what the future is and reorganize accordingly. So we encourage your support specifically of 553, but also 552, because I think it's an opportunity to really reorganize Fulton County for a better and more streamlined government. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan. I'm sorry. Alan Pinato. I'm sorry.
That's close. My name is Alan Pinato. I reside in the Guilford Forest subdivision in South Fulton County, near the intersection of I-285 and Cascade Road. Our subdivision has over 200 families, and I serve on the South Fulton County Study Committee of our community association. We formed a committee to explore this and to get the feedback from our residents. Regarding the Chattahoochee Hills Bill number 553, our community is neutral. Although the attractive environment and open space are certainly desirable to the current residents, it is not clear how these amenities will provide any benefit to the citizens of the northern portion of South Fulton. Regarding Bill 552, and to be specific for the lady who asked for specificity, first we would propose an amendment to eliminate the 2007 vote. We think one vote is enough to determine preferences, the one in 2006, and we see no need to bring it up again in 2007 if it goes down the first time. Second, we propose an amendment to give voters a third option to select an affiliation with the City of Atlanta. The majority of our community prefers this option at this point, and since the community here is talking about free choice, we'd like that choice to be on the ballot as well. The rationale for the second part is that we believe that it is difficult to have the most efficient and effective government with multiple small jurisdictions. We feel that larger cities are more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Holman Edmond. I'm sorry. Bruce Bowers.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bruce Bowers. Along with my colleagues at Massey and Bowers, we have the singular honor of representing both the citizens of South Fulton who are seeking a vote on cityhood and the citizens of the Chattahoochee Hill Country area who are also seeking a vote on cityhood. I'll be extremely brief, have one comment. The issue has been raised, Representative Oliver, and in the minds of everyone about other options. The law is not perfect. The law cannot create perfect options. The third option has been, though, the law of the land from time immemorial, and that is any contiguous resident of an existing city can petition to be annexed into that city right now. And that's the 100% option. It's existed in the law of the state of Georgia for a long time. And we respectfully submit that that option has already been there through the 30-some-odd meetings that have been had within the community. Everyone has known about this option. The opportunity has arisen, and it frankly has not been an issue until the hearing today. That concludes everything. Unless there are any questions, we have.
Any questions, Mr. Bowers?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is all of the people that have signed up to speak. As I said before, today was a committee meeting in which we would not vote. I do want to allow the author, Senator Reed, and any other members of the committee to make some of their comments, and then I'll give you an idea of the time frame in which I expect hopefully to move forward. Senator Reed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just want to express my gratitude for hearing the citizens and the leadership from South Fulton County. I just wanted to take a minute because there were some comments that were candidly directed to me, and I'd like to address a few of them in as collegial a way as I possibly can. I just want everybody to know that clearly this has not been easy for me. I mean, I happen to represent all of the affected area. So I happen to represent the mayors who have very valid points, and I also represent the citizens. But I think what the committee heard today overwhelmingly was what I heard, was from the citizens. And I have great respect for the municipalities. But we have now been engaged in more than 20 meetings. We have had a process that's going on more than 3 months. I have been completely available and will be available to anyone through this entire process, and I remain willing to work with them. And I'm very sensitive to this notion of being landlocked. But I will tell you this. What we heard repeatedly was, no one wants to go to bed in one city and wake up in another. And that if they're incorporated into any city, they want to vote on whether they're incorporated at all. That's what we heard repeatedly. Chairman O'Neill asked a specific question regarding my neighbor's amendment about only having one vote. The reason that there's redundancy in terms of having 2 votes is because the moratorium period exists. And the way the bill is drafted is if during the interim time, after the bill is signed into law by the governor and becomes effective, if someone attempted to annex the property that we're discussing, Mr. Chairman, then it would trigger a referendum vote. So the reason that there are two referendums is because, candidly, the citizens may not be ready at that time, but don't want to be annexed into another territory. So our goal in having that moratorium part of the bill was simply to make sure that no one was absorbed into a territory without their consent. And as you know, we can currently annex with a 60% method, which is getting the signatures of 60% of all of the residents there. And the other issues regarding the annexation plans and all of the rest, I'm interested in finding out what they are, and I'm willing to work with you, Mr. Chairman, and anybody on this committee to try to accommodate the annexation plans that the cities have in place, as long as they're reasonable and as long as they provide the citizens of South Fulton, unincorporated South Fulton, with the ability to make the choice of whether they want to go into that municipality. We worked on this bill literally tirelessly trying to find accommodation. The question regarding multiple choices, we knew that that was unconstitutional because we tried. So it wasn't as if we didn't want to provide the maximum choices available. But time and time again, after visiting with Legislative Council, the line that had to be drawn was what we're able to do. So if as a committee we're able to figure something out that addresses the issue, I remain willing to try, Mr. Chairman, and respectfully ask for your favorable consideration of this legislation after hearing from the citizens of unincorporated South Fulton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Reed. I hope to meet with the author and the other members of the legislature, especially from the affected area, and the members of the committee. Certainly we'll take time to meet with any of you from the public that want to meet, or the municipalities. But my hope is that we have a bill that both reapportionment and Legislative Council has stated is correct by Tuesday. And if we have that, then I would expect that we would have another meeting Tuesday afternoon and hopefully have a vote on the legislation at that time. With that said, we're adjourned. Thank you for coming.